Thank you all. I've been at every one of these since the first one. I don't think we had Persian food at the first one because Capital Catering provided the food. And Capital Catering may be good at lots of things, but Persian food, as it turned out, wasn't one of those things. And so I wrote a letter to the chairman of the Rules Committee saying we should exempt the rule on Capital Catering for this event so we could have Persian food. And since I was also the chairman of the Rules Committee, this went very well. Anytime the Senate. Also say we're pretty much at the point in this event where almost everything's been said. This is a Senate rule. Everything's been said, but not everybody's said it yet. But repetition is not a bad thing. I was a history teacher. I was a university president. I was in the Congress for 26 years. And frankly, I never got tired of saying the same thing until I became convinced that everybody understood what we were talking about. And that almost never happened. You know, if when you all leave, you could say, well, all those speakers said the same thing, and here were the three most important same things they said, we'll know it was a successful event. But we get to be here, get to hear Madam Rajavi, who I haven't met in Paris, and I didn't meet here, but I did meet in Albania. Got to hear Madam Rajavi talk about this continued effort to secure freedom for people who are willing to work for their own freedom, and also freedom for a non-nuclear Iran. The level of success has not been what we'd want it to be yet, but as others, particularly Senator Shaheen just said, the last year has brought an incredible change in the environment where we hope this change will occur. The regime has never been so weak. The regional proxies who have been tools of the regime are almost, at least temporarily, out of existence. Now, bad things have a way of coming back. We should take advantage of that moment when many of those bad things are where they should be, which is off the scene of real activity. The Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, the biggest regional state ally in Syria of Assad, all permanently or temporarily gone. Frankly, they've all paid their price they should have paid for their despicable behavior. And the $2 trillion effort that Iran has made to become a nuclear tyrant appears to be a gamble that may never pay off. You know, President Trump made a courageous decision. He understood with what had happened with Israel's efforts and the capacity that we uniquely had. He understood how vulnerable Iran was and how vulnerable it had become. And so those strikes made a huge difference. And by the way, who was it that told our government about those strikes? It was August of 2002, and the NCRI, I'm sure with the active assistance of the MEK, were the first two people that came forward and said, these two facilities have been built, they're about to become operational, and the Iranians believe nobody will be able to eliminate those facilities until they have nuclear capacity. That did not happen. In spite of the weakness of all of those things I mentioned, in Tehran, oppression continues, executions continues. Just last month, over 300 people were executed in Iran. Mostly young people, mostly people whose futures have been lost, whose families have been changed forever. And why were they executed? Because they were willing to stand up and speak up and do what they could to try to see that that system of oppression is not allowed to continue to last. The Iranian people are not giving up in Iran, and we should not give up outside of Iran. You know, there are many people here in this room today that I've seen repeatedly in the Capitol. I've seen in some of your homes in Washington. I've seen in your homes in Missouri. I've seen in some of your homes in California, looking at one of my California hosts right now. And we can't give up, particularly since people who are there aren't giving up. The MEK is certainly not stepping back. The MCRA, as the Parliament in exile, continues to look for elected officials and governments. And we don't always need the entire government to be able to say, this group in the United States Senate, this group in the British Parliament, this group in wherever have stood up and said they are for us, just like this resolution that's being talked about for several times today. For 3 decades, the regime has held the title of the world's leading sponsor of terrorism. This is a title nobody should be able to hold and keep. And they are weaker now in that title than they've ever been, but they are strong, just as strong as they've ever been in repression and fear and doing what they can to make people do what they're told, and hopefully this constant surveillance, all the things that should not be tolerated in a free society are there because it's not a free society. It's time to do what we can to make a difference. When I came to the Senate 15 years ago, I came with a real concern about what was happening at Camp Liberty in Iraq. Camp Liberty, people who were fighting in Iraq for liberty for themselves and also a future for Iran, willingly gave up most of their means of self-defense on the basis that the United States guaranteed their protection, and we were not able to fully do what we had promised to do. So I came to the Senate not only with a burden for people who were willing to fight for themselves, and we'd said, if you'll step back in this moment of crisis in Iraq, we'll protect you, we'll secure you, we'll put you at this place, we'll call it Camp Liberty, and you'll be safe. And they were not. We were not able to do what we said we were going to do. And so for those people who had done everything they could, we needed to find some place for them to go. And we talked to people all over the world, countries all over the world. Could they come here? Countries that had Iranian populations already there, could they come to your country? Finally, Albania appeared to be willing to take those 3,000 people from Camp Ashraf. And I said to the Albanians when we were talking to them, if you'll take them to Albania, I'll come and visit in Albania. And so, as Senator Cornyn mentioned earlier, in 2017, we went to Albania, we met with the government leaders, we went to the camp and spent time with the 3,000 people at the camp. But because we spent so much time with the president of Albania, we were a little late getting to the camp. And didn't hurt, by the way, that the president of Albania knew the next place these United States senators were going was Camp Ashraf. And we went to the camp, we were just a little bit late, and so one of the unusual things of the day in our large vehicle, wasn't quite a bus, but almost a bus, had this big red carpet going from the gate all the way to where the meeting room was. And at the camp, they decided we want to maximize the time we'll have to visit, so we'll just drive the bus down the red carpet. Now, buses don't normally drive down the red carpet for a good reason, but we drove down the red carpet that day, had a chance to visit with the people there, and by the time we got back to the United States, the Albanian government had decided we can allow the creation of a new camp in a much better location and with much more freedom, and that's how Camp Ashraf 3 was built. That freedom didn't last for as long as it should have. The last 5 years, a lot of the freedom that was originally there in the camp have gone away, continuing to try to fight for that. Hopefully, the Trump administration, which was very good on this issue in the first administration, and obviously has had their hands full the last 11 months. Hopefully that we'll be able to find a way to get them attentively looking at this issue and the importance of example and freedom in this issue, just like they did before. We didn't have that kind of interest. In fact, the past administration was looking for every way they could find to get the Iranians to do other things that we wanted to do. And the Iranians, one of the things they said, well, we're concerned about these people that we think are terror groups because they terrorize a government that's repressive and unfair and always pushing. So we need to continue to do what we can for that effort. We need to continue to do what we can to help people who are still in Iran fighting for freedom. One thing we definitely, as I said last year, before the last year of activities have happened, one thing we definitely shouldn't do is bargain with the Iranians on the basis of, my concern then was and still is, well, we'll leave you alone if you'll leave the rest of the world alone. That should not be an agreement we are willing to achieve. We should be totally committed to a free Iraq with free people who are treated freely, with women who are treated freely, with young people who are treated freely. You know, this is like the youngest population in the world in what may very well be the oldest civilization in the world. The value of that civilization, the value of that continued example to the world that Persia set for a long time needs to be combined now with the freedoms of this century. I'm glad to be here to be part of that. I'm glad to see all of you again. There is so much work to be done, but the moment is as good as the moment has ever been to successfully get that work done. Thank you for letting me be here with you today.